I've been lurking here for a while, but I never thought I'd be writing my own story. Yet, here I am, sitting in this empty house, my thoughts spiraling out of control. I don't even know where to start. My life feels like a slow-motion train wreck I can't look away from. I guess I'll just start at the beginning. A few weeks ago, my wife, Anna, told me her cousin, Dylan, was coming to stay with us for a few days. She mentioned they hadn't seen each other in years and how it would be nice for them to catch up. I wasn't thrilled about having a house guest, especially with everything going on at work, but I didn't want to be the bad guy. So, I said, sure, why not? Figuring it was just a few days. I had no idea that decision would flip my world upside down. When Dylan arrived, something about him immediately rubbed me the wrong way. He wasn't what I pictured Anna's cousin to be. He was confident, too confident, tall, well-dressed, with this arrogant smirk plastered on his face. He didn't act like family. He acted like he owned the place. But Anna seemed genuinely excited to see him, so I brushed off my unease as me just being tired or overthinking things. The first night, everything seemed normal enough. We had dinner, shared a few stories, and Dylan was surprisingly charming. But there were these subtle moments, fleeting glances between him and Anna, the kind of looks that seemed too familiar for two people who were supposed to be cousins. At one point, Dylan even joked about how Anna hasn't changed one bit. It sounded innocent, but something about the way he said it gnawed at me. I didn't say anything at first. I mean, what was I supposed to say? Hey, Anna, your cousin is looking at you like you're his high school crush? It sounded ridiculous, even in my head. So, I decided to keep my guard up and watch quietly. The second day, things got weirder. Anna had taken the day off work to spend time with Dylan, so I didn't see much of them. When I got home, I found them in the living room, sitting a little too close on the couch, laughing like old friends reminiscing about a shared secret. They didn't even notice me walk in. I cleared my throat, and they both jumped like guilty kids caught sneaking candy. "Oh, hey, honey," Anna said, her voice a little too cheerful. "We were just catching up. How was work?" "Fine," I replied, my eyes darting between them. "What have you two been up to?" "Just talking," Dylan chimed in with that smirk of his. "Anna was telling me about all the adventures you two have been on. You've got yourself a real gem here, man." I forced a smile, but inside, I was boiling. Something was off. I could feel it in my gut. That night, I lay in bed beside Anna, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of the unease clawing at me. The next day, I came home early from work, hoping to surprise them, or maybe catch them. I'm not proud of it, but I had this growing paranoia I couldn't shake. Sure enough, when I walked in, I found them in the kitchen, talking in hushed tones. The way Dylan looked at her, it wasn't the way family looks at family. And Anna? She wasn't acting like herself. She looked nervous, like a teenager caught breaking curfew. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. They both turned to me, their expressions frozen for a moment before Anna quickly said, "Nothing. We were just talking about old times." But it didn't feel like nothing. It felt like everything. And it wasn't until later that night, after Dylan had gone to bed, that I confronted Anna. "Is there something you're not telling me?" I asked, my voice low but steady. She hesitated, her eyes darting away before meeting mine. "What are you talking about?" "Dylan," I said bluntly. "There's something off about him. About the two of you. What's going on?" Anna sighed, her face a mix of frustration and guilt. "You're being ridiculous," she said. "He's my cousin, for God's sake." But her words didn't match her body language. She was fidgety, avoiding my gaze. It felt like a wall had gone up between us, one I couldn't break through no matter how hard I tried. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every interaction, every glance, every word, searching for clues. And then it hit me, Dylan wasn't her cousin. He couldn't be. There was no way. The realization left me cold, my chest tightening with a mixture of rage and disbelief. I had to know the truth. Whatever it was, I couldn't live in this limbo any longer. The next morning, I couldn't look at Anna the same way. Every move she made seemed calculated, every smile forced. Dylan was still there, acting like he didn't have a care in the world, but I couldn't bring myself to say much to either of them. My mind was consumed by one thought. I had to confirm my suspicions. At lunch, I left work under the pretense of running errands. Instead, I drove to Anna's childhood home. Her parents lived about 40 minutes away, and while we weren't particularly close, they'd always been polite to me. I figured if anyone could give me answers about Dylan, it'd be them. When I arrived, Anna's mom, Linda, greeted me with surprise. "Russell, what are you doing here?" she asked, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Sorry to drop by unannounced," I said, trying to sound casual. "I just had a quick question about Dylan." Linda's face froze. "Dylan?" "Yeah," I continued. "He's visiting us right now. Anna said he's her cousin, but I don't remember hearing about him before. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't forgetting something." Her eyes darted away for a split second, just long enough to confirm my gut feeling. When she looked back at me, her smile was tight, forced. "Oh, Dylan," she said, her voice too light. "He's from her father's side. Distant cousin. They didn't grow up together." "Distant cousin," I repeated, nodding slowly. "Got it. Thanks." I didn't believe a word of it. Linda was lying, and she wasn't very good at it. But I didn't press her. I thanked her for her time, made small talk for a few minutes to keep things from seeming too suspicious, and then left. As soon as I got in the car, I started piecing everything together. Anna had introduced Dylan as her cousin, but she didn't expect me to question it. Why would I? Who questions their spouse about something like that? But Linda's reaction, it all but confirmed I was being lied to. By the time I got back to work, I was seething. I wanted to confront Anna, demand the truth, but something told me to hold off. I needed more than just suspicions. If I was going to call her out, I needed hard evidence, something she couldn't deny. That night, I pretended everything was fine. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I sat through dinner with Anna and Dylan, nodding along to their conversation, all while keeping my true feelings bottled up. Every laugh they shared felt like a slap in the face, every side glance a stab to the chest. After dinner, Dylan excused himself to take a phone call, leaving Anna and me alone. It was the first time we'd been alone together since my visit to her parents' house. "Dylan seems pretty comfortable here," I said casually, testing the waters. Anna smiled, but there was tension in her eyes. "Yeah, it's nice having him around. It's been so long since we've seen each other." "Where's he from again?" I asked, keeping my tone light. She hesitated for just a fraction of a second before answering. "Out west. Oregon, I think." "You think?" I pressed gently. "Well, I know he moved around a lot," she said, her voice a little too defensive. "Why are you asking so many questions?" I shrugged. "Just curious. He's a bit of a mystery." Anna didn't respond. Instead, she got up and started clearing the table, her back to me. I could feel the tension thickening in the air. Later that night, when Anna went to bed, I stayed up under the guise of finishing some work. Once the house was quiet, I went into the guest room where Dylan was staying. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I felt compelled to search. I started with his suitcase, carefully unzipping it to avoid making noise. It was mostly clothes, but tucked into a side pocket, I found a small black notebook. I flipped through it quickly, scanning for anything that might stand out. Most of it was mundane. Addresses, random notes, but then I saw her name. Anna. There, on one of the pages, in his messy handwriting, was a list of dates and locations. And next to some of the dates were little notes like hotel and dinner. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized what this meant. These weren't random dates. They were meetings. Their meetings. I took pictures of the pages with my phone, careful to leave everything exactly as I'd found it. Then I slipped out of the room, my hands shaking. Back in the living room, I stared at the photos on my phone, my mind racing. This was it. Proof. Anna had been lying to me. Dylan wasn't her cousin. He was her ex-lover. And judging by the notes, their affair had been going on for a long time. The betrayal hit me like a freight train. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd built my life with, had been deceiving me all along. And Dylan, he wasn't just some random guy. He was someone from her past, someone she brought into our home under false pretenses. I sat there in the dark, gripping my phone like a lifeline, trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wanted to wake Anna up right then and there, shove the evidence in her face, and demand answers. But another part of me knew I needed to be strategic. If I played my cards right, I could make sure they both paid for what they'd done. The next morning, I could barely look at Anna. Every time she smiled or spoke to me, it felt like she was twisting the knife deeper into my back. Dylan, on the other hand, acted as if he didn't have a care in the world. He greeted me with his usual smug grin, completely oblivious, or maybe indifferent, to the storm brewing inside me. Big plans today? Dylan asked over breakfast, his tone casual. I forced a smile, keeping my voice steady. Just work. You? He shrugged. Probably just hang out. Maybe Anna and I will go for a drive later. Show me the sights. I clenched my jaw but managed to nod. Sounds nice. As soon as I got to work, I pulled up the photos of Dylan's notebook on my phone. I started cross-referencing the dates and locations with my own calendar, trying to piece together how long this had been going on. The overlap was staggering. Business trips, late nights at work, even weekends I'd spent visiting family, all times when Anna had been busy or tired. Each connection felt like another punch to the gut. I wasn't just angry, I was humiliated. How had I missed this? How had I let myself be so blind? By lunchtime, I couldn't take it anymore. I called my best friend, Nate. He and I had known each other since college, and he was one of the few people I trusted completely. Hey man, I said when he picked up. You got time to talk? Always, he replied. What's up? I hesitated, unsure of how to start. It's Anna. I think she's been cheating on me. There was a pause on the other end. What makes you think that? Nate asked, his tone cautious. I told him everything. The notebook, the strange behavior, the lies about Dylan being her cousin. When I finished, Nate let out a low whistle. Man, that's wow. I don't even know what to say. Neither do I admitted. I don't know what to do. Do I confront her? Do I kick them both out? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Listen, Nate said. You need to keep your cool. If this is really happening, you don't want to do anything rash. Gather as much evidence as you can, and then confront her when you're ready. But do it on your terms, not hers. His advice made sense, even if it wasn't what I wanted to hear. I thanked him and hung up, my resolve hardening. If Anna thought she could betray me and get away with it, she was dead wrong. That evening, I acted like everything was normal. I kissed Anna when I got home, asked her about her day, and even joined her and Dylan for a movie in the living room. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, sitting there, pretending like I wasn't drowning in anger and betrayal. But I had a plan. I'd already set up a small voice recorder in the kitchen earlier that day, hidden behind some books on the shelf. I didn't know if it would catch anything, but I figured it was worth a shot. If Anna and Dylan had been sneaking around behind my back, they might slip up when they thought I wasn't around. The next day, I left for work early, telling Anna I had a meeting. Instead, I parked a few blocks away and walked back to the house, slipping inside quietly through the back door. I had no idea what I was looking for. Maybe a conversation, maybe something physical, but I knew I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. At first, everything seemed quiet. Anna was in the kitchen, making coffee, and Dylan was still in his room. But then I heard them talking, softly at first, then louder as they moved closer to the kitchen. I'm telling you, he's starting to get suspicious, Anna said, her voice tense. You think? Dylan replied, his tone dripping with sarcasm. You've been acting like a nervous wreck ever since I got here. I told you this was a bad idea, she snapped. You shouldn't have come. Dylan laughed, low and bitter. You didn't seem to mind when we planned this. Don't tell me you're having second thoughts now. I'm not, she said, her voice softening. It's just, I didn't expect it to be this hard. He's a good man, Dylan. He doesn't deserve this. Then why'd you call me? Dylan shot back. If he's so great, why'd you open the door when I came knocking? Anna didn't respond, and the silence that followed was deafening. I felt like my heart had been ripped out of my chest. There it was, the confirmation I'd been dreading. They weren't just old flames reconnecting. This was deliberate, planned. They'd brought their affair into my home, right under my nose. I wanted to burst into the kitchen, scream at them, throw them both out. But instead, I slipped back out the way I came, my mind racing. Nate's words echoed in my head. Keep your cool. Gather evidence. Plan your next move. When I got to my car, I sat there for a long time, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. This wasn't just betrayal. It was war. And if they thought they could play me for a fool, they were about to find out just how wrong they were. When I got back to work, my head was spinning. I couldn't concentrate on anything. Emails blurred together. Meetings felt like background noise. All I could think about was their conversation, their audacity. They weren't just cheating. They were strategizing, like this was some game they thought they could win. That night, I walked into the house with a new kind of clarity. I was done being blindsided. If they wanted to treat me like a fool, fine. I'd let them think they had the upper hand. But in reality, every step they took was leading them closer to the trap I was setting. Anna greeted me at the door, her smile strained. Hey, honey, how was work? Busy, I replied, brushing past her. I didn't linger for a kiss, and I could feel her watching me as I set my bag down and loosened my tie. She followed me into the kitchen. Dinner's almost ready, she said. Your favorite, roast chicken? Thanks, I said, my tone neutral. Smells good. She hovered for a moment, like she was waiting for me to say more. When I didn't, she shifted awkwardly. I'll just finish up. It should be ready in about 10 minutes. Take your time, I replied, forcing a small smile. I didn't eat much at dinner. The sight of Anna and Dylan chatting across the table, pretending everything was normal, turned my stomach. I nodded along when they spoke, gave the occasional polite response, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. I was planning my next move. After dinner, I excused myself to the bedroom, claiming I had a headache. In reality, I wanted to be alone to process everything. Once I was sure Anna and Dylan were distracted, I pulled out my laptop and started digging. I went through Anna's emails first, using an old password she'd once shared with me. At first, it was just mundane stuff, work emails, newsletters, and a few exchanges with her mom. But then I found it, a folder labeled Personal. Inside were dozens of messages between Anna and Dylan, some dating back months. I read through them with growing disgust. They were filled with memories of their past relationship, plans for their time together, and, most infuriating of all, mockery of me. Dylan had called me clueless more than once, and Anna hadn't bothered to correct him. If anything, she'd encouraged it. One message, in particular, stood out. It was dated about a week before Dylan arrived. Dylan, are you sure he won't suspect anything? Anna, he's busy with work. He doesn't pay attention to stuff like this. Dylan, good. I don't want any drama. Anna, there won't be. Trust me. I clenched my fists, the words burning into my brain. She thought I didn't pay attention? That I wouldn't notice? She had no idea who she was dealing with. I took screenshots of every email, every damning piece of evidence. Then I logged out and cleared the browser history, making sure there was no trace of my snooping. If Anna thought she was pulling the strings, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. The next day, I called Nate again. Hey, I said when he picked up. I need a favor. Anything, he replied. What's up? I need a lawyer, I said. A good one. Someone who specializes in family law. There was a pause. You're serious about this? Dead serious. Nate sighed. All right. I'll make some calls and get back to you. Thanks, I said. I owe you. You don't owe me anything, he replied. Just promise me you'll keep your head on straight. This isn't a movie, man. Don't do something you'll regret. I won't, I assured him. But they will. By the time I got home that evening, I had a plan. Nate had given me the name of a highly recommended attorney, and I'd scheduled a consultation for the following week. In the meantime, I focused on gathering as much evidence as I could. Over the next few days, I kept up the act. I smiled at Anna, joked with Dylan, and even pretended to enjoy a game of cards with them one evening. All the while, I was watching, listening, documenting. Every slip-up, every careless comment, every moment of arrogance. I captured it all. It wasn't easy. There were times I wanted to snap, to throw the evidence in their faces and watch them squirm. But I knew that wouldn't get me what I wanted. If I wanted justice, real justice, I had to be patient. The moment came sooner than I expected. One evening, I caught them in the act, not physically, but emotionally. I'd left my phone recording in the living room while I pretended to work in the garage. When I played the recording back later, my suspicions were confirmed. Dylan, you think he knows? Anna, no. He's been acting normal. Dylan, good. I don't want to deal with his drama. Anna, you won't have to. He's too trusting. Always has been. I paused the recording, my jaw tightening. Trusting? Maybe once. But that trust was gone now, replaced by something much colder. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. The time for waiting was over. It was time to take control of the situation and to make them pay for what they'd done. The morning after I listened to the recording, I knew it was time to act. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, not when every moment around them felt like a lie I was forcing myself to live. But I also knew that confronting them in the heat of the moment wouldn't give me the closure I needed. This had to be deliberate, precise. When I left for work, I made a detour to a local electronics store and picked up a set of small security cameras. I'd done my research the night before, and these were exactly what I needed: discreet, wireless, and motion-activated. Perfect for capturing whatever Anna and Dylan thought they could hide when I wasn't around. That afternoon, I took an early lunch break and returned home while Anna and Dylan were out running errands. Moving quickly, I placed the cameras in strategic locations: the living room, the kitchen, and, most importantly, the guest room where Dylan was staying. I made sure they were hidden well enough that no one would notice, but positioned perfectly to capture everything. By the time I finished, I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. Whatever they were planning, I would know about it. No more secrets. No more lies. That evening, I acted like nothing was out of the ordinary. Anna and Dylan were in good spirits, laughing and chatting like they didn't have a care in the world. It was almost impressive, the level of arrogance they displayed. They really thought they'd gotten away with it. Dinner was great, Dylan said, leaning back in his chair. You're lucky, man. Anna's a fantastic cook. I forced a smile. Yeah, I guess I am. Anna shot me a quick glance, her smile faltering for just a second before she recovered. Thanks, Dylan. It's nice to have someone appreciate it. The comment was a jab, subtle, but there. I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my expression neutral. Let her have her little digs. They wouldn't matter soon enough. Late that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I checked the footage from the cameras. Most of it was uneventful, just them moving around the house, doing normal things. But then I hit a goldmine. The camera in the living room had caught them sitting together on the couch after I'd gone upstairs. Their voices were low, but the camera's audio picked up everything. Dylan, you think he's catching on? Anna, I don't know. He's been quiet lately. It's hard to tell with him. Dylan, if he finds out. Anna, he won't. Trust me. I've got it under control. The smugness in her tone was infuriating. She thought she had it under control? She had no idea what was coming. The next day, I started putting the final pieces of my plan into place. I contacted the attorney Nate had recommended and laid everything out. The emails, the recordings, the footage from the cameras. The lawyer was impressed by how thorough I'd been. With this kind of evidence, he said, you'll have no trouble getting what you want in court. The judge won't look kindly on her behavior. Good, I said, my voice cold. I don't want there to be any room for doubt. We discussed my options, and I left the office feeling more confident than I had in weeks. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt like I had the upper hand. That evening, I made sure to leave the house again under the pretense of running errands. I needed to give Anna and Dylan the opportunity to let their guard down, to say or do something incriminating while they thought I was out of the picture. When I returned, they were sitting at the kitchen table, their conversation halting as I walked in. The tension in the room was palpable. Everything okay? I asked, glancing between them. Yeah, Anna said quickly. Why wouldn't it be? I shrugged. Just seems quiet in here. Dylan chuckled awkwardly. Guess we're just tired. Long day. Right? I said, letting the silence hang for a moment before heading to the bedroom. Once I was alone, I checked the footage from the cameras again. Sure enough, they'd been talking while I was gone. And this time, it wasn't just vague comments about my supposed ignorance. Dylan, You've got to end this, Anna. We can't keep sneaking around like this. Anna, I know. I'm working on it. Dylan, when? What's the plan? Anna, soon. I need to find the right time to tell him. I stared at the screen, my jaw clenched. The audacity of it all. She was planning to end our marriage, but on her terms? As if she was the one in control? Not a chance. If Anna wanted to play this game, I'd let her think she was winning. But when the time came, I'd make sure she saw just how wrong she was. The next morning, I woke up with a strange calmness. My mind was clear, my focus sharp. The pieces were finally falling into place, and it was time to make my first move. If Anna and Dylan thought they were in control, I was about to shatter that illusion. At breakfast, I made small talk as if nothing was wrong. Anna seemed relaxed, but Dylan was fidgety, like a man waiting for the other shoe to drop. Good. I wanted him nervous. The more on edge he was, the easier it would be to catch him off guard. After breakfast, I told them I had a big project at work and would be staying late. Don't wait up, I said with a smile. It might be a long night. Anna nodded, her expression unreadable. Okay, be safe. As I left, I glanced back at them sitting together in the kitchen. They looked so at ease, so confident in their little bubble of betrayal. They had no idea what was coming. I didn't go to work that day. Instead, I met with my lawyer to finalize the next steps. We went over the evidence again, making sure everything was airtight. Emails, recordings, footage. It was all there, ready to paint a clear picture of their deceit. You're doing the right thing, my lawyer said as I signed the paperwork. This will give you a strong case. It's not just about winning, I replied. It's about making sure they know I'm not the fool they think I am. He nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. They'll know. With everything in place, I headed back to the house, parking a block away and slipping inside quietly. I'd timed it perfectly. Anna and Dylan were in the living room, deep in conversation. They didn't notice me standing in the hallway, listening. Dylan, he's been working late a lot. You think he's onto us? Anna, I don't think so. He's always been a workaholic. This is normal for him. Dylan, still, I don't like it. It feels like he's avoiding us. Anna, maybe he is, but it doesn't matter. Once I talk to him, it'll all be over. I couldn't help but smirk. She thought she'd be the one to end this? Not a chance. That evening, I waited until Anna and Dylan were out of the house. Something about running errands together. Once I was sure they were gone, I went to work. I packed a suitcase with Anna's clothes, some toiletries, and a few personal items. Nothing too dramatic, just enough to make a point. Then I placed the suitcase by the front door, along with a note that read, Anna, it's time we had an honest conversation. Come home alone. I left the house and parked down the street, watching as they returned. From the safety of my car, I saw Anna's face fall as she read the note. Dylan looked uncomfortable, like he was debating whether to leave or stay. After a brief exchange, Anna walked inside, and Dylan drove off. I gave her a few minutes to stew before heading back. When I walked through the door, Anna was sitting on the couch, the note clutched in her hand. She looked up at me, her expression a mix of guilt and defiance. What's this about? She asked, her voice trembling. You know what it's about, I replied, my tone calm but firm. I think it's time we stopped pretending. She stood up, trying to regain some composure. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult me, Anna, I said, holding up my phone. I have recordings, emails, footage. I know about Dylan. I know everything. Her face went pale, and she took a step back. You were spying on me? I was protecting myself, I shot back. And it looks like I was right to. She opened her mouth to argue, but closed it again, the fight draining out of her. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. It got out of hand. Out of hand. I repeated, incredulous. You brought him into our home, Anna. You lied to my face. How long were you going to keep this up? Until I caught you in bed with him? Tears welled up in her eyes. I was going to end it. I swear. I just didn't know how. I laughed bitterly. Of course you didn't. Why would you? You were too busy enjoying your little secret. Her tears spilled over, and she sank onto the couch. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry." I stood there, watching her cry, feeling a strange mix of anger and pity. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to tell her it would be okay. But another part of me, the part she'd betrayed, wanted her to feel every ounce of pain she'd caused me. "This isn't about apologies, Anna," I said finally. "This is about consequences. And it's time you faced them." Anna stared at me, her tear-streaked face frozen in shock. I could tell she was trying to process what I just said, but no words came out. The silence between us was heavy, suffocating. "You don't mean that," she said finally, her voice trembling. "We can fix this, Russell. We can work through it." "Work through it?" I repeated, my voice sharp. "Anna, you've been lying to me for God knows how long. You brought your affair into our house. You let him sit at my table, sleep under my roof, and smile in my face like nothing was wrong. How do you expect me to work through that?" She buried her face in her hands, her sobs muffled. "I didn't want to hurt you." I laughed bitterly. "Well, congratulations. You did." I sat down across from her, keeping my tone steady. "Here's how this is going to go. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I've got more than enough evidence to file for divorce. If you cooperate, we can make this as painless as possible. But if you try to fight me, I won't hesitate to use everything I've got." Her head shot up, her eyes wide. "Divorce? Russell, please, don't do this. I made a mistake, but we can move past it. I love you." "Don't," I said coldly. "Don't stand there and tell me you love me after everything you've done. Love isn't lies. It isn't betrayal." She opened her mouth to respond, but I held up a hand, cutting her off. "You made your choice, Anna. Now you have to live with it." That night, I moved into the guest room, locking the door behind me. I didn't want to see her, hear her, or even think about her. She spent the night crying in our bedroom. I could hear her muffled sobs through the walls, but I didn't care. Every tear she shed felt like a drop in the ocean compared to the pain she'd caused me. I spent most of the night staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. The anger was still there, simmering just beneath the surface, but now it was joined by something else, sadness. I wasn't just losing a wife. I was losing the life I thought we'd built together. The dreams we'd shared, the future I'd imagined. It was all gone. But there was no going back. I knew that now. The only way forward was through. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Anna moving around in the kitchen. I stayed in the guest room, waiting for her to leave before heading downstairs. The suitcase I'd packed for her was still by the door, untouched. I shook my head. She wasn't going to make this easy. I grabbed a cup of coffee and sat at the table, my mind already working on my next steps. I'd made an appointment to meet with my lawyer again later that week to finalize the paperwork. Once that was done, I'd file for divorce and start the process of splitting our assets. But first, I had one more thing to take care of. Later that afternoon, I called Dylan. He answered on the third ring, his voice cautious. "Hello?" "It's Russell," I said, keeping my tone even. "We need to talk." There was a long pause. "Look, man, I didn't mean—" "Save it," I interrupted. "Meet me at the coffee shop on Main Street. 30 minutes. Before he could respond, I hung up. When I arrived at the coffee shop, Dylan was already there, sitting in a corner booth. He looked uncomfortable, his eyes darting around like he was expecting a fight. Good. He should have been. I slid into the seat across from him, my gaze locked on his. "You know why we're here." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Look, Russell, I'm sorry. I never meant for things to get this far." "Spare me the apology," I said, my voice cold. "What I want is an explanation. How long has this been going on?" He hesitated, glancing away. "A few months." "Don't lie to me," I snapped. "I've seen the emails. The messages. This didn't start a few months ago." His face went pale. "Fine," he admitted. "It's been about a year. Maybe a little longer." I clenched my jaw, the anger bubbling up again. "And you thought what? That I'd just roll over and let this happen?" "It wasn't like that," he said quickly. "We didn't plan for this. It just happened." I leaned forward, my voice low and deadly. You don't accidentally sleep with another man's wife. You made a choice, Dylan, and now you're going to face the consequences. I stood up, tossing a few bills on the table for my coffee. Stay away from my house. Stay away from Anna. If I see you again, I'll make sure you regret it. He nodded quickly, his eyes wide. You won't see me again. I swear. Good, I said, turning to leave. Because I'm done playing nice. After my meeting with Dylan, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and exhaustion. Confronting him hadn't erased the betrayal, but it was a step in the right direction. It felt like I was reclaiming some of the power I'd lost. But there was still work to be done. Back at the house, Anna was sitting in the living room, staring blankly at the TV. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes red from crying. Where were you? She asked, her voice soft. Out, I replied curtly, brushing past her. We need to talk, she said, standing up. About what? I asked, turning to face her. The lies? The cheating? Or how you thought you could walk all over me and I wouldn't notice? Her lips trembled, but I didn't let her speak. You don't get to play the victim here, Anna. Not after everything you've done. She sank back onto the couch, silent. Good, I said. Now, if you're serious about fixing this, you'll pack your bags and leave. Tonight. Her head snapped up, panic flashing across her face. You're kicking me out? You need to leave, I said firmly. I need space. And so do you. Anna didn't leave that night. She stayed in the guest room, saying she needed time to figure out where to go. I didn't argue. The more time she stayed, the more evidence I had of her unwillingness to take responsibility. Meanwhile, I moved forward with the divorce. My lawyer assured me that with the evidence I had, Anna wouldn't stand a chance if she tried to contest it. I also began preparing for the possibility of selling the house. It hurt to think about losing the home we'd built together, but I knew I couldn't stay there. Too many memories. Anna tried to talk to me a few times, but I shut her down every time. I didn't trust myself to stay calm around her, and honestly, I didn't want to hear whatever excuses she had left. A few days later, I found a letter on my desk. It was from Anna, written in shaky handwriting. The letter was long, full of apologies and explanations. She wrote about feeling neglected during my long work hours, about how Dylan had made her feel seen in a way she hadn't in years. She claimed she hadn't planned to hurt me and that she still loved me. I read the whole thing, my emotions swinging between anger and disbelief. When I finished, I folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. Her words didn't change anything. Actions spoke louder than apologies, and her actions had said it all. One evening, I received an unexpected phone call. It was from Dylan's wife, Judy. I just wanted to thank you, she said, her voice tight with emotion, for telling me the truth. How are you holding up? I asked. Not great, she admitted. I kicked him out. He's staying at a motel, and the kids don't want to see him. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. As much as I hated Dylan, I wouldn't wish his mess on his family. You have nothing to apologize for, Judy said. He brought this on himself. We talked for a while longer, commiserating over the chaos they'd caused in our lives. By the end of the call, I felt a strange sense of solidarity. At least I wasn't going through this alone. A week later, Anna finally moved out. I watched from the doorway as she loaded her suitcase into her car. She turned to me before getting in, her eyes pleading. Russell, she said softly, I love you. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't respond. I just stepped back inside and closed the door. For the first time in weeks, the house was quiet. The silence was heavy, but it also felt like a weight had been lifted. I was finally free. The divorce process was brutal. Anna tried to argue for a bigger share of the assets, claiming she contributed just as much to our marriage. But my lawyer tore her arguments apart, using the evidence I'd collected to show her betrayal. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. I kept the house, the savings, and my dignity. Anna left with little more than what she'd brought into the marriage. After the divorce was finalized, I decided to sell the house. It was too big, too full of memories I didn't want to hold on to. I moved into a smaller place across town, closer to work and friends. I also started therapy. I knew I couldn't move forward without dealing with the anger and pain I'd been carrying. It wasn't easy, but it helped. Slowly, I began to rebuild. I reconnected with old friends, took up new hobbies, and even started dating again. It wasn't about replacing Anna. It was about finding myself again. It's been 6 months since the divorce was finalized. Life isn't perfect, but it's better. I've learned to trust my instincts, to value my own worth, and to set boundaries. As for Anna and Dylan, I don't know where they are, and I don't care. They're part of my past, and that's where they'll stay. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that betrayal doesn't define you. It tests you, yes, but it also teaches you. And in the end, it's what you do after the betrayal that truly matters. I'm moving forward, one day at a time.